Hello, this is Elizabeth and Elton Brewington, and we are with Discover Brightside, the video podcast and network. And I'm so excited to have with me an expert who's going to give us some advice on retirement. And so I have with me David Shapiro. David, please introduce yourself and tell us about your firm and what people can expect.
Sure. My name's David Shapiro. I'm the Regional Director of Wealth with Johnson Brunetti, and we're a regional retirement income planning firm. We specialize in helping pre-retirees and retirees navigating that transition into retirement.
Awesome. Now, with the economic outlook that we're going through right now and the Federal Reserve interest rate that was cut on September 17th, how is this going to affect the benefits of retirees?
Yeah, great question. So, with the clients that we serve, and our clients tend to be already retired or pretty close to retirement, they're primarily looking for ways to generate income because as they get into that stage of life, they just don't have the paychecks, and our role is to help them recreate that. So, now that we have clarity on what's going to happen with interest rates, it's really impacted our strategy because as interest rates come down, some of that income being generated probably needs to come from maybe a different place going forward. Most importantly is that now we have clarity at this stage. Before there was just talks about interest rates. Now we can just have some real world conversations about the best place to draw that income from. And in a interest rate environment where things are going down, it's a very different structure. It's a very different strategy than when interest rates are going the opposite direction. Combined with the markets hitting all-time highs, there really should be some planning done at today's environment.
Awesome, awesome. And thank you for sharing that with us because that is something that concerns a lot of people. Now, with regard to healthcare and retirement planning, how can someone be effectively budget the healthcare costs in retirement?
Yeah, and I think the first step is getting a realistic idea of what those health cares are going to cost. I'm on today from Boston in New England. The cost can be as high as $200,000 a year for nursing homes. And Medicare is not going to pay that. Medicaid will, but only once you've spent through a lot of your assets. So it's important to have a real realistic view. And statistically, almost everyone's going to have some of those healthcare costs. And the way we approach that, first off, is just having a real conversation. Realistically, everyone's going to have those costs. And for some folks, that might be looking at long-term care insurance, passing that risk to an insurance company. There are legal ways to protect what you've worked so hard for through trusts and specific structures. Then lastly, there could be just making a commitment that some of your money is going to support you during that stage of life. Maybe it's some investments, maybe it's selling off of a piece of real estate. But most importantly, I think it's important to be realistic about your budget, make sure that's being built in, and have a specific plan in case we get to that space. And it can be a substantial cost.
Uh, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're planning for their medical expenses?
It's probably just not having a plan, as simple as that sounds. A lot of folks go on the premise of it's not going to happen to me. When we sit down with each and every client, we want to be realistic as far as what those costs are going to be. And the strategy really varies. Insurance using a long-term care policy for many folks has become prohibitively expensive. And if the markets are having a great year and you have some costs, it's not a big deal. But what do you do if the markets are in a downturn? So it's making sure that you have the right plan in place that regardless of what's going on in the world, that you have a structure that's going to allow you to make sure those payments are in place and able to be paid longer term. So I would say the first step is getting a realistic idea of what those costs are going to be. It's very different based on your specific scenario. But then also it might be your specific vision of what that stage of life looks like, whether it's a home health care aid, continuous care communities, active adult. There's a lot of different versions. They each have different costs. And once we have that understood, then it's coming up with a very specific plan. So when that day comes, it's not a surprise. If you have the right plan, you're not overly concerned with that.
Very true. And so when we talked about cash flow and investments, how much cash should retirees keep now, especially because the government jobs were what we would call the cushy jobs, and now people are actually getting fired. And also, we've seen that in the corporate world, of course, where you had this great job and you were counting on your retirement, and now it's gone. So, while you have a job or a income coming from your business, you really want to make savings. So, how much should people keep for a cash flow?
Yeah, a lot of that really varies on your perfect scenario when you get to this stage of life. In general, we like the idea of maybe 6 to 12 months worth of cash reserve set aside. Now, maybe if you don't have as much cash, but if you have other investments that are liquid that you can get access to, that could make sense too. There's also the what I call sleep at night factor. I have more cash in the bank than I probably should because it allows my wife to sleep well. So it's coming up with a balance of knowing that you have enough cash or maybe even just conservative investments. The concern, though, is if your cash is sitting at the bank and it's only making 3 or 4% today, and the world is getting a lot more expensive, you have to have the right mix of investments. Some money should be in cash or liquid, some money middle, some money going to be long term. So based on your specific scenario, but most of the times we like the idea of 6 to 12 months worth of cash, but you also want to be able to sleep well. So make sure you have the right balance as well.
Wow, that sounds so important. 6 to 12 months. So there you have it. We had another investor firm that talked about save more. Even though this is an economic downturn, it's not what you spend, but what you save. So even though everybody's losing jobs and money is tight and scarce, save more. So yeah, so try your best to do that. And so, policies and programs, this big, beautiful bill, how is it going to affect retirees and their savings? And what is the right way to evaluate your Medicare and your retirement options?
Yeah, so the big beautiful bill at its core is one of the largest tax changes that we've had in quite some time. And the most important portion is currently we have some of the lowest tax rates in history, but there's always the concern on whether or not those would continue. So the first part is now those became permanent. And then also these standardized deductions, which are relatively high compared to the last 20, 30 years, those became permanent as well. What that allows us to do is up to this point, there's been a lack of clarity going forward. But now that we have an understanding of what the new tax laws are going to be, now we can really get into the tax planning. There are also a few other substantial changes. If you're over age 65, there's now a $6,000 additional standardized deduction you get access to. For a retiree, that can be a pretty meaningful adjustment. For most of the folks in the United States today, your Social Security, about 90% of the US now, will not pay taxes on their Social Security. So for someone that's depending on Social Security, that's more money in your pocket. If you live in a high tax state, I'm calling you today or on this Zoom today from the Boston area. Historically, if you had over $10,000 in state and local taxes, that was the maximum you can deduct. Now, for a lot of folks, you can deduct up to $40,000 a year if you're under certain earning thresholds. So I haven't read every page of the 9,000 pages of the bill, but when we're having conversations every day with our clients talking about income planning, creating those paychecks, it's substantially changed the planning process now that we have that clarity. All of those changes create substantial opportunities for maybe doing Roth conversions, additional tax planning, legacy planning. And when we're sitting with clients, we're not just talking about stocks and bonds and what your performance is. These are the conversations, the questions you're asking are what really matters over a long period of time. It's not trying to get an extra 1% out of the stock market if you're making the wrong decisions from a tax planning. In the Medicare space, our firm is not an expert at Medicare. Now, we have Medicare professionals on staff, but we're always sensitive to some specific things on Medicare. The income that you show over the course of a year is going to impact what those Medicare premiums are. So it's making sure that if you're going to do a Roth conversion, if you're going to change some IRAs to Roth, how you take your income it can be a very simple adjustment to your current financial situation on where you take that money to reduce the potential income for that calculation. You just don't want to cross into that threshold by accident and all of a sudden you're spending $200 more every month in Medicare. So having a financial planner, making sure you're addressing all those bigger concerns when it comes to Medicare. My biggest recommendation with Medicare, talk to an expert. It can become overwhelming, confusing. The year you turn age 65, it feels like your mailbox is just filled with thousands of people wanting to talk to you. And whoever it is, just get some guidance. Make sure you understand to make the best decision for your personal situation.
Absolutely. And since we are doing emotional intelligence, we're having, I think we've got 30 speakers, we're doing 12 sessions. The videos will be available to everybody. What is your opinion about prosperity and the road that leads to it? So, if someone wanted to work with you, the plan, I know you've mentioned that a couple of times. How does somebody work with your firm and with you? What is the first step?
Yeah,
And what do they have to do?
pretty straightforward. So we're specialists all day, every day. The only conversations we're having with clients is helping them through that transitionary period. We're not the right fit for someone who's saying, I'm trying to beat the stock market or really do college planning. We're specialists at one very specific area. We pride ourselves on keeping things extremely simple. You nor I want to look at 90 pages of documents. We do the first conversation we have is just simply getting a sense and understanding of what matters emotionally, but also financially to each and every client. We're independent, we're fiduciaries. With that information, we just produce a simple one-page understandable financial plan. We can run an analysis to make sure we have a plan on how your paychecks get generated the rest of your life. And very often having that conversation with us, it might be a little reassurance that you're already on the right path. If it makes sense to work with us, terrific. If not, that's okay too. But our singular goal going through that process, what I'm most excited about, it's not making money in the markets. The markets have been incredibly strong for the last decade, the last 2 years, amazing. It's making sure that you have a plan that if the markets are up 20% or down 30%, you're off enjoying life, making memory with your friends and family or whatever matters to you, and not just watching the stock market on a day-to-day basis. We're big believers in what we call memory investing. What you're talking about, to me, that's real prosperity, the ability to have the freedom to do the things that you want to. And that's what we specialize, making sure people can really just take that fear out of investment and focus on the things that matter.
Absolutely. We've been talking a lot to financial advisors, and they've said that they've got these clients that keep watching their bank accounts and panicking every day. Well, we can't help it because this is a very volatile time that we're living in, and things are going to go up and down, and what you thought you invested in may not be. So you want to have a diverse portfolio. You want to have a expert like David. So make sure you make your appointments, and we'll make sure that his website is available to you. And everyone, we really are with you at this time of losing jobs or starting second careers or getting ready for retirement and having an expert. And we're so grateful for this conversation because we want to make our audience smarter and brighter. And don't try to tackle this on your own. It's much better to have an advisor that has an experience in this field to talk to. And so we're very grateful, David. Thank you so much for this interview. And I hope we see you more and work with your firm more. Thank you.
Terrific. Great catching up. Take care.
So yes, so